Alright, and welcome to this section 1-5, corresponding angles. Now, you might be wondering, what does the word corresponding mean? And corresponding really just means this, the same position. And so we're going to really use this idea of the same position to make this incredibly easy. Here's what I want you to see. Example 1 says this, it gives us this diagram. And it says, given that HT is, what's that word right there? What word do we use for two vertical lines? Given that HT is parallel to FP, and guys, you gotta understand that this symbol, when you see it, means these two lines are parallel. And given that HQW is 112 degrees, we want to find FRQ. Now, how can we make this kind of simple? Okay, thing number 1, let me switch to a kind of a weird color here, weird green. I'm going to encircle this top section of these lines, and I'm going to encircle this bottom section of these lines. And the reason I want to do that is I want to show you, using different colors, let's use my favorite orange here, that when you look at this, it's really kind of broken down into a couple of different angles, or 4 to be exact. So right here, we see that we have angle 1. And let me go ahead and use a different color. Okay, now we're using a dark blue. Here, we have kind of angle 2. And then let's use a different color, of course. And here, we have another different angle, and that's 3. And then lastly, oh, you know what, yeah, I haven't used red yet. We have a different angle, and that's angle 4. Now notice, if we then look down here at our second set of 4 angles, which is right down here in this kind of funky green, we have 4 more angles, and we're going to use different numbers for these, but if they're in the same position, I'm going to use the same color, so check it out. So right here, I see kind of in the top left where we had angle 1 right here, we're going to call this angle 5. And then let's see, we use purple next. So, we use blue next. So, and then right here in this top right, we had 2. So here in this top right, I'm going to put 6. Kind of hard to see. And then here in this bottom right, we had 3. So here in this bottom right, I'm going to put 7. And then of course, in this very last section where we have the red, I'm going to go ahead and put angle 8. Now, what are we really saying here? We're saying that whether you're in the top set of 4 angles or you're in the bottom set of 4 angles, anything that you have in the same position, those are examples of corresponding angles. So we know that angle 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. We know, switching to this blue, the blue I said, we know that angles 2 and 6 are corresponding. And we also know, switching to this purple, well, why don't you tell me? Pause the video and see if you can kind of guess it right. Yeah, we know that 3 and 7 are corresponding angles. And lastly, of course, using the red, we know 4 and 8. Now, what is so important about corresponding angles? Well, they are congruent. So if you have corresponding angles, they are the exact same. So right here, when we said HQW was 112, well, here is HQW. It's sitting here at 112. And then we wanted to find FRQ, F to R to Q. Well, notice they're in the same position. So if HQW is 112, then FRQ is also 112. We have our answer. It's literally that easy. Okay, now that was a lot of setup. I encourage you to pause this and then finish taking notes. But let's really start to fly through these, because once you understand them, these become so easy. Okay, here's my second example. Alright, so I have 2 lines, and note the key factor for these 2 lines is that if this is line L and this is line R, we have to say that given L is parallel to R. So always make sure that you see that L is parallel to R. Now then, let's say that I gave you right here this acute angle was, I don't know, let's say 25 degrees. And I said, I want you to find all other angles. Well, what would you do? Could we do this? Is that enough information? Well, check it out. I know that here is a straight line. Let me do it red. Here is a straight line, and any two angles on a straight line must add up to, correct, 180. So here I can simply do 180 minus 25, and of course I'm going to get 155. So here in this angle it's 155. Okay, well, what do I know about vertical angles? Look, I know that that is a vertical angle to that, and we know that vertical angles are congruent. So if this is 25, then this must be 25. And the same thing applies, oh, wrong color. The same thing applies here. If this is 155, its vertical angle must also be 155. Now check it out. But we're talking about corresponding angles. And you'll notice here is the top left of those top four angles. If I drop down and I go to my top left, right here, it's corresponding, it's congruent, that's 25. That's a bad 25, let me rewrite 25. And wait a second, if this is 25, what about its vertical angle? Well, that's 25 as well. And check it out. If right here in the red we have 155 degrees, then its corresponding angle must also be 155. And its vertical angle to that must also be 155. So if you understand vertical angles and you understand supplementary angles, you can literally take one angle and fill out every missing space all across the board. Pause it, finish your notes, and let's move on. Okay. Here we have example 3, and this is going to be inarguably the trickiest version of these problems. So here we go. Let's say I give you this, two lines, and I know in your head you're saying, Mister, they gotta be parallel, and you're right. So we'll say A is parallel to B. But I'm going to draw some kind of weird lines right here, something like this. And we're going to call this angle 1. Now up here, I'm going to say that this is, let's say, 46 degrees. And let's say down here, it's entirely different. Like these angles on the top and bottom, they no longer have to match because we have two separate lines. So let's just say this is something like 150 degrees. Now here's my question. I want you to find the top portion of angle 1. I want you to find the top portion of angle 1. Now what do I mean by that? Check it out. We have this very cool new tool, and we're going to call these auxiliary lines. And what is an auxiliary line? Well, you will always split, when you see angle 1 being formed by two separate lines, you're going to split it in half with a third line that is parallel. So I'll say parallel, AUX, that stands for auxiliary. Let's see if I can spell it correctly. AUXIALLIARY. And that's got to be super close. I'm not your spelling teacher, I'm your math teacher. All right, so we have our auxiliary line, and notice when we draw that auxiliary line, this 46 is in the top right, like when you look at those four angles, and notice this, the top portion, is also in the top right. So guess what? If they're corresponding angles, they are congruent. And so that's 46 as well. Perfect, perfect, perfect. We've answered the question. Okay, pause it there, finish taking the notes. Let's move on to our final example. We're going to throw some shapes in here. Okay, example 4. And let's say I just give you like a triangle, but this triangle's got a line somewhere in the middle. And let's call this A and B and C and D. And right up here we got T for the top. Okay, so wait a second. And we're going to be given this is a right angle and this is a right angle. And here's my question to you. What conjecture can you make about if this is a line and that's coming off a right angle and that's coming off a right angle? What conjecture could you make, or that means a guess, what guess could you make about line AB and line CD? And if you said they are parallel, you are 100% right. Now check it out. What if I say, hey, right here, this is 56 degrees, and I ask you, how big is that angle? Well, guess what? If this line, if you can just imagine it extending forever, and you imagine this line extending forever, you'll notice that this angle here is in the top left. It's above this dotted line, and it's to the left of this line, so top left. And right here, this angle right here is in the same position, so guess what? Bam, 56 degrees. Corresponding angles are congruent. They are in the same position. This should be an easy one. All right, good luck. I'll see y'all in our next video.